Hey everyone, Chris Renshaw here, and I am currently driving back from Acadecon 2017. Just crossed back into Maryland, but apparently I still have like 4 hours to go. So I thought I've got nothing, good way to pass the time is I can record a little video and let you guys know about how the trip was. So as you can see, definitely got convoys. It's what happens when you play an RPG in a big convention center where everyone's being loud. You have to be loud, and this is not a complaint. I'm just saying, if my voice is a little rough, you know why. So, this year was my first Acadecon, and I'd been wanting to go, and I knew a lot of people that were going to be there. Since I decided to go, I've even met even more people that I met for the first time there. So I decided to go. By far, happened to be even better than what I thought it was going to be. So it's a decent sized convention. It's much smaller than like Origins, Gen Con. I mean, we're probably talking like in the 500 people, maybe 1,000. I don't know the exact numbers. I'm just on my poor estimation skills. It's put on by, in case you don't know what Acadecon is, it's put on by the RPG Academy Network, and it's an RPG convention. It's all about bringing people together to play games. It's in Dayton, Ohio. So Thursday I drove out, managed to stop in Columbus, which I hadn't been to since Origins, and see Joanna, one of the people I met at Origins, and she lives in Columbus. She was going to be busy and couldn't come to the convention, so I swung by, had lunch with her, got a chance to say hey. One of those only things you can do when you're out on travel from meeting some of these people that you only see during conventions time and talk to them on Twitter. So that was fun. So finally, after I got everything checked in, I went upstairs to the top floor of the Crown Royal. No, I keep saying Crown Royal, which is funny because that's the dice bag that comes with the liquor. But the Crown Plaza, they have a restaurant on the top floor, which is really cool because you can see out over the city, especially at night. And went to the VIP party that they had there, and then it spilled into it basically turned into like a big, huge meet and greet with people that were there. And I got to see a lot of people. I know just about most of the podcasters I either follow, listen to their shows, or follow but maybe not listen to their shows because I don't have enough time in the day. But people such as I met Danny Neary and her husband John for the first time, and for real, although I've been talking to at least her, especially talking Cypher stuff with her for the past couple of months. But if I got to see her and her husband face to face, so that was cool. Let's see, who else? I met some of the crew from the Redemption podcast, which is a Star Wars actual play podcast. Let's see, all sorts of people. And then there's just other people that are not podcasters, but they're just equally as awesome and equally as fun. And it was funny because so John Neary and I and a couple other people are sitting around the table. One of the things that was a highlight for me that night was us sitting around the table with Emily, who's with Jim McClure, does a lot of and does a lot of. She's currently in the midst of writing a magical girl game. I want to say it's called Domina Magica, but don't hate me if I get that wrong. But she and Megan from the Modifier podcast are big magical girl fans and that magical girl genre of anime. And so John and I and a bunch of other dudes are basically like, okay, so tell us about this magical girl thing, because we're clueless. And both John and I are both parents of kids that are in that age group that are, and like Chloe's not interested in that, hasn't shown an interest in the magical girl, but she has watched anime, so I'm kind of interested. But apparently, John and Danny's kid is watching a lot of one of the magical girl shows. So he's like, all right, we're like these clueless people just trying to get some information, and we got like two sources, a wealth of knowledge on the other end of the table, just spilling our guts out. It's just a bunch of people talking about and learning about magical girl stuff for like 30 minutes to an hour. So that was a lot of fun. But I did go to bed early that night because I had been up. I did the typical get up at 3 a.m. to get around DC before traffic gets bad. So I knew, and I was running. The next day I was running my first game, so I made sure to hit the sack early that night. But I managed to get up the next morning, go scope out. This time I go to convention center. But before I go to the so I needed breakfast, and I didn't want to pay it was like $12 for the hotel buffet, which is not bad for a hotel buffet, but I'm not gonna, that seems like a lot for breakfast. I pull up Yelp, and I'm like, open now. What's open now? And it's like, there's a barbecue place that's open. Like, a barbecue place that's open for breakfast. That sounds like my kind of thing. But apparently, it must have picked up a food truck location. Oh, so I walk like probably half a mile to where this supposed barbecue shop is, only to find out there's nothing there. It's only like City Hall and a bunch of stuff. Oh, by the way, did I mention it's like 26 degrees at this point in the morning? I am freezing. So luckily I happened to pass a Subway on the way there, and I stopped there on the way back to get food. Yeah, that was ridiculous, especially because in Maryland it still can't make up what season it is. So it was like going from 60s to like the 20s and 30s. I'm like, oh God, I am freezing. And I didn't bring a whole lot of like cold weather gear. I brought my big jacket, or my big coat, because I wasn't expecting to be walking around a whole lot, like outside. I figured there'd be a lot of walking around in whatever, you get it. So I get set up while I'm waiting around for everything to get started, because my first game's at noon. I meet up with Troy from the Cypher Speak podcast, and we just start chatting about a bunch of things: Cypher system, conventions, all sorts of things. We also go to Arby's. So we go to Arby's for lunch, and he gets like the what is it, French dip or whatever sandwich that you get the au jus with. And the lady goes, I'll be right back, I have to go get it from downstairs. And I'm thinking, that's weird that a fast food restaurant has it downstairs. And then secondly, it took her forever to get that au jus. So like, we start in with us being creative GM types, Troy and I start talking about how funny it would be if like there's like a roast beef monster down there, and that's where the au jus came from, and she's like fighting it off. And that's why it was taking so long. So after that, I was like, that is such a funny premise, I have to put it in my game. So at noon, I started my first game, which was Noctera, which is a setting that I created myself. And it's basically vampires, werewolves, and magi versus zombies and aliens. So if that sounds absurd to you, then guess what? You got the premise down pretty well. And I decided to make it extra absurd. For instance, one of the things they passed was an Arby's, where this guy was fighting off a tentacle that had reached out from like one of those alleyway level doors that lead to basements that you see. They're like propped open, and like tentacles are coming out and grabbing him and stuff. And he's holding like a jar of au jus. So yes, I did put that in. I ended up putting that in my game. So that was fun, and the players loved that. And you know, I even there's a couple people that were in that game that I had met either beforehand or had followed me on Twitter and gotten into the game. Like PK Sullivan was in that game, and it was really great because getting a chance to show. Well, a lot of them had never played Cypher before. They'd either heard of it or read the book or had maybe tried Numenera once, but they had never really played Cypher before. So that was awesome. We finished that up, and that's it for Friday. Like, that's all I had scheduled. I didn't schedule a whole lot because I wanted to kind of feel around and get, see what discover something. I didn't want to schedule my convention packed full. I wanted to be able to discover things, and I did. I managed to fall into a game of Fate because I was looking. Luckily, they have a desk there set up with all the events running, and I'm like, what's open? What's still got seats? And there was a game, Fate being run. It was just sold. It was a Fate game where you're Vikings trying to stave off the apocalypse. And I'm like, that sounds fun. And they're like, oh, and the guy who's created this game is going to be running it. And find out it is Tracy from the Gnome Cast or Gnome Stew, and the game is called Iron Edda, and it's basically, in this world, dwarves have built these giant destroyers that are going through rampaging, and Loki comes to these comes to these Vikings and go, hey, I've got this old giant artifact that will bind people to the souls of giants and allow them to summon the bones of dead giants and basically go all Pacific Rim style on these destroyers. And so you play a party of adventurers of different things. Like, somebody's like a seer, somebody might be a let's see, what else was there, like one of them was a leader, and then someone was like a runes he had like runes inscribed on him. He was doing runic magic basically, but if you use it too much you might explode, that sort of things. And then I decided to play the Bone Bonded, which is basically the guy, I can summon all the bones and stuff. That was fun. That was probably the best game of Fate I'd ever played. I've only played 2 games of Fate before then. One was a hack that was pretty much not Fate, and the other one was the one I ran for the Dirtbags podcast, and that one really doesn't count. So, because I was learning the system. So it didn't have really much to live up, or it didn't really have a high bar to set, but it definitely took that bar, and for any future Fate games, kind of like raised it up real high. So that was a lot of fun. And in fact, I had a lot of fun making the character, because to help set the scene, he asks you a bunch of questions about things that are going on in town to kind of give you some buy-in on the story. And when it came to me, it was like, the question was, it's these 2 people who have gotten into a fisticuffs or some sort of scrape, and what was it about, and that sort of thing. And I wanted to do something creative, so the first thing that came to my mind is it was a dance-off, and that's what happened. So after doing that, I decided that I was going to make my Bone Bonded person basically Chris Pratt or Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy. So like, I called him Christian Pryorson, and basically like all his aspects were themed that way. Like his sacred item was like the memory of his mother playing music, and like his high concept was right place, right time, as he just happens to be in the place where he needs to be. But the other thing is I had a lot of work compared to the other characters, because not only did I have to make my character, I had to make the giant as well, because the giant's kind of soul is bonded to yours, and so like it can speak to you and speak through you, and it can actually, if you don't indulge in some of the prior indulgences it had, it can like take over your body and control you for a while until it's gotten its fill, because they're not completely happy that this magic kind of bonded them to some mere mortal. And so I was at a loss. I'm like, okay, I've kind of got an idea for this. What am I going to do for the giant? Because I mean, you could go all right standard, like, or like very grim and Grimace kind of creature, and I'm like, I didn't want to do that. So I made it. So in the mood of what we were doing, I got an inspiration, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna name the giant Bacon, and I'm basically gonna use his inspiration, Kevin Bacon from Footloose, and say that dancing is his prior indulgence, so thus the dance off, because I was basically playing the person that started the dance off. And so basically you have Chris Pratt with Kevin Bacon's souls bonded inside, and it was funny because like the aspect that determined our relationship was, oh no you didn't, and that was a blast. That was a lot of fun. Definitely gave me a new perspective on fate. And then later that night, I just kind of was hanging out with people like Troy and Michael and PK, and we played a bunch of King of Tokyo. I totally stomped them, beat them all at King of Tokyo, so that was fun. Of course, I managed to take out one, and it was just a matter of, there was down to two of me and Michael, and I managed to deal in the final blows, taking some really big risks. So I became the King of Tokyo. So then we skip ahead to Saturday. Saturday we start off with me running games again. Cypher, of course, where I did the Strange as using the Stargate as kind of a framing mechanism. So it was called a Strange Gate. It was a lot of fun. I don't know if I'm completely sold on the concept. I may have to do some tweaking. The players enjoyed it. They had a blast. Specifically because a lot of them they played some Cypher, but they never played the Strange. And especially when it got to the translation bits, where I basically did not write their translated focus, because if you don't know what the Strange is an RPG where you jump kind of from different fictional recursions in this alien network, almost like pocket realities, except for when you translate to them, you're not some like stranger in a strange land. You get written into the lore of that reality, so you take on pieces, like you get to basically, however you see yourself, that's what you end up as in that reality. So they were translating into a superhero recursion, so they all became superheroes. So, and it's great because the character sheet has this second page that you fold in half and slide into your other one to kind of cover up your previous stats, and this is now your recursion stats. And so that was a lot of fun. They thought that was cool. But definitely the highlight was the next game, where I played in a 2-table predation-esque game with Troy and Darcy Ross, both the co-hosts of the Cyberspeak podcast. Oh my God, that was amazing. I had never, you hear people talk about the feels, and really kind of drawing in feelings when you're playing, especially when people are talking about RPGs. They definitely pulled some heartstrings on that one, because they made a lot of the two tables kind of a lot of personal relationships interconnected, and so some of the things that happen at one table would affect you at the other table, and there was a lot of time travel stuff involved, and there was even some table swappage. It was amazing, and if someone were to explain to you the game, you'd be like, how did this get pulled off? It seems like an impossible task of juggling these two tables and stuff. But that's because both Troy and Darcy are masters of their craft and managed to pull it off splendid. I think it pulled off even better than they expected it to do, after because we ended up having dinner with them afterwards and just talking to them about it. So it sounded like it was even better than they had planned. So it was just it was a piece of art there. It was amazing. And it was really great because some of the people, even I hung out with the rest of that night, and these are just random people that I met, but the con's small enough that you're just making friends with just anyone, because you all just love to game and you just love hanging out. So, and then like I said, we went to dinner, and I got to do, so Tracy from the Ironetta game was there came and joined us at dinner with along with John Arcadian, and they did a live recording of the Gnomecast for the Gnome Stew website, and so that was fun. I had heard of Gnome Stew before, but I had never really like actively followed it. Like I knew all these people were a part of it, and I knew what it was, but I'd never been fully. But I definitely want to now. I'm going to be more engaged with them and kind of keeping track of some of their articles. Gnome Stew is a website where they do a lot of blog posts and videos and stuff on tabletop role-playing games. So it seems like a good fit that I should. It's one of those like it's on my like almost like a list of shame. Whereas board gamers have a shelf of shame of things they haven't played and they feel like they should. This is like a list of shame of sites and stuff I should be actively following, but I haven't until now. I'm going to be better about that. But I got to listen to that. That was a lot of fun. Then we all went out and hung out basically. There was an Irish pub down the road that we took over one of the outside rooms. And we just had all sorts of gaming and thoughtful discussions about random stuff. And just like, it was funny because all these random people kept coming in or into this room, one set aside room we were, and then they would hear us for like 5 minutes and then run away screaming. So that was a lot of fun, but that definitely was like the nice capstone to the Acadecon experience. And then now unfortunately, I wanted to get back at a decent time, so I had to get up. Didn't really getting really much stuff done this morning. So, and now I'm heading back home. So, a lot of fun. I definitely want to try and grab some of my RPG friends and bring them to this next year. Definitely keep an eye out. They usually run a Kickstarter sometime in the spring. So if you're interested, you should definitely keep an eye out for that. And in the meantime, it's 2 conventions down, 1 more still to go. We got PAX Unplugged coming up, and then after that, it's Thanksgiving, and then finally I'll get to sleep in my own bed on a weekend. So thanks for watching this video. Make sure you subscribe to stay in tune with all the other things that all the other crazy shenanigans I get into and crazy things that I get to review. And until next time, thank you all for watching. Bye-bye.